Hi everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. Hi. Hello. Yes, I will drop the check-in link in a second. If I could just also get a confirmation that everyone can hear me well. Yeah, okay, so we also got it dropped in the chat as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, here, I'll also have it handy with me. So if anyone else comes in, I have it. But yeah, I hope everyone's been doing well. I hope feel free to tell me about how Global Hack Week has been for you. Anything exciting, or I guess something that you learned. But yeah, I'd love to hear about it. Yes, hello. Welcome in. Yeah, we're gonna start pretty soon. But yes, so today I have my water bottle with me because it's gonna be a little bit more of like a speaking type of stream. Hi, first MLH stream. Oh my gosh, welcome. I'm Ellie, and I am so excited. I hope you have a blast throughout the rest of the live streams throughout this week too. But yes, so we're doing an intro to UI UX. And this is like especially for those who are possibly interested in UX or have never like considered it before but want to know a little bit more about like what it is, because everyone talks about it, and it's also of course related to tech. And yeah, I personally code and also design, so this is something like I feel very passionate about how important it is to know I guess like design and such. Isn't it weird everyone who works at MLH middle and last name are from MLH? Yeah, that's so wild. But yes, so we'll get started in a little bit. Hopefully we have some other people come in. But yeah, so definitely super excited. So if you know nothing about design or what UI or UX is, this is definitely the stream. And yeah, I'm excited to be talking about it. Tomorrow I will also be having, so a lot of this is what you're gonna learn is a lot of like theoretical or just like content stuff that relates to this. But tomorrow I will be doing another live stream about making your web app on Figma. So that will also be more like hands-on, and I'll actually be going through like the entire like process of designing a web app. All on Figma. So yes, so that is going to be tomorrow, but today is just going to be me talking about what exactly UI and UX is and why it's important to know, I think, like these like little concepts first before you even think about just like design in general or making things look pretty, because it comes second to everything that I'm going to talk about today. So yes, okay, so I'm gonna take a sip of my water. Okay, all right, let's get started. All right, so, wow, the way no one can see my presentation. Okay, all right. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think we can all see that. I think this looks good. But yes, so intro to UI UX. So yeah, what is up? So what are we doing for the next hour-ish? So we're gonna learn a little bit about UI UX basics and what it is. Then we're going to go like beyond design, so just learn about user research, interviewing, and testing, and then also a little bit about designing and making your web apps look pretty. Oh, you're my favorite mentor. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. I'm glad I'm able to help. Yes, so just a little bit about me. My name's Ellie. I'm a junior student at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, UIUC, and I am majoring in information sciences. So I guess just a little bit about like my background. I am a front-end developer for a few organizations, and then I also like design on the side. And also a lot of my classes are about like usable, designable interfaces. So I hope that I guess like my background in this is a little helpful for if you want to reach out after and ask questions. I'd love to also talk about this like on stream and then also off stream. Yes, are we going to do mobile apps? So, I guess, are you like referring to? Oh yeah, I think there's a making your mobile app, like your first mobile app that is, I think, with Flutter. That's also a stream. Yeah. So yes. So if for any reason you're not able to make it to the entirety of the stream, that's no worries. The YouTube video is always posted after from the entire stream, so you can always go back and rewatch. And then I also have this site here, mh-ellie.uu.ai. There is where I post all of the slides of all the streams I've ever done. So you can check that out as well. And if you're here for my last Intro to UI UX sort of live stream, a lot of the content you'll see is similar, but I do go over some new things just based off experiences. So yeah, I'm going to do a quick intro. So what is UI UX? So we're going to talk about like what is the differences between them, a basic overview, some terms, and then of course the design process. Also just realized I do have the background music on. Let me make it more quieter. Okay. But yes, okay, so yeah, let me go ahead. Okay. So yes, so we're gonna also just like explore some things in UI UX. So just like design concepts in general, and then yeah, so that's sort of what the intro or everything will consist of for the rest of the stream. But yeah, I just want to point out here, so what this says, so UI UX design is not art, so design is with a purpose, just as graphic design, industrial design, content design. So it's a bit, with art, everything is like interpretive. UI UX and like its design has to be like with a purpose and has to actually be interpretable for the user for the purpose that it's meant to have. So just like, I guess, a quick overview before that. Just an understanding of everything. It's not like just aesthetics, which I feel like is the misconception for a lot of stuff. And also feel free throughout the stream if you have any thoughts, comments, feel free to comment those, let me know. And definitely like bring up some discussions about certain things. I'd love to do that. All right, so yes, so UI, so user interface design. So this is what a user interacts with. So this is like, the screens and what's displayed on them. So this is usually what people think of, like the layout, colors, typography, its brand identity, the accessibility. So all of that is UI design. Right, so like the layout of like where do elements appear on the screen, colors, what palette is used, and what emotions do like these sort of colors evoke. We know that for something's simple, for example, is like red. You usually think of like warning, danger, caution, right? So it's important to understand where we're using the color red in our application, things like that. Typography, what typefaces are used and what do they communicate. So a more funkier text is gonna give off a different vibe than like something like Times New Roman, which we're associated more with like academia, things like that. So, certain things have their own identity that we need to make sure that we understand fully before we use them in a design sort of thing. Yeah, and then how do elements respond to user interaction, right? So just like understanding that as well. And yeah, so these are just like some concepts. Please let me know if, again, at any point if there are any questions on anything I talk about. But yeah, we'll move on. So that's UI. And then what do we mean by UX? So UX stands for user experience. So it is the entire experience around a product or service, taking into account the user's emotional state or the context or its environment, and the designed system or artifact. So this is just keeping in mind like the focus of designing for pleasure rather than the absence of pain. So this I think just goes back to like previously, like I guess back when computers were still really new. It a lot of like the UI from back then was very hard to understand because it was only technical people really working with computers, like the very beginning, before they were even like, distributed to everyone. Like it was very bad because only technical people knew how to use it. So then that's where the user experience comes in. Like, okay, how can we design to make sure that what we're doing is like, it like feels good to do something. It feels good to like go on this like website or application, things like that. So yeah, so what does the user experience, how do we make it better? So that is using understanding user journeys, doing a lot of research, and of course deliverables. So this includes like personas, journey maps, storyboards, and prototypes. So these are a lot of like different things that I'll also talk about as well. But yeah, so just a little background on there. So yes, so this also takes into account like qualitative and quantitative research that puts the user at the center of the design process. So we're working towards the pleasure for the user with user experience. Yes. All right. And then now the 5 elements of UX design. So what are these? So we have surface, skeleton, structure, scope, and strategy. So these start from the very bottom. So you'd understand strategy, scope, and then structure. And then you build out your skeleton, and then surface. So let's talk a little bit about what each of these technically mean. So the skeleton is interface design, navigation design, and information design. So interface design is presenting and arranging interface elements to enable users to interact with the functionality of the system. So this is exactly like how we say putting in like, where will this button go to make sure that a user can view the photo or give this picture a like, things like that. So that's, of course, building everything. That's the UI of everything. Navigation design is how to navigate through the information using the interface. So understanding. Oh, hello. Hi. Oh, yes, hello. Yes, that's okay. Please go to sleep. Yeah, can feel free if you watch later. But yes, hello. Thanks for stopping by. User experience is basically front end. So it's not, I'd say UI design, or UI is like the front end, like the layout of everything and where you're placing buttons and stuff. So that's the user interface. User experience is a concept that is like exactly how we can make the interface better for a user. So that's exactly how like I would explain that. +1 this. All right, just because I didn't sleep all night doesn't mean you also have to do that. All right, anyway, we'll continue. Navigation design, yes, how to navigate through the information using the interface. So what this means is like, okay, so how are we going to lay out all the information so that the user can, it's with as little clicks as possible. So you also have to consider we can't make user interface like, getting from point A to point B, what the user wants, it can't be like incredibly complicated because it'll dismotivate the user. You can think of it like yourself when you're let's say like, oh, like there's like this task you have to do, but there's like so many steps in between, like you don't want to do it. it's the same thing with like navigating information that is supposed to be convenient for you, and it's not. So that's sort of navigation design, understanding how we can get, and there are multiple like point A's and point B's with like a web app. Like, what if you're trying to find a tweet? What if you're trying to find an account? So those are like different things, right? Point A to point B. How can we make that as less tedious as possible for a user and make it a good experience? So that's what navigation design is. So the navigation of certain things. And then information design defines the presentation of information in a way that facilitates understanding. So again, the same way, it's just like, is the information presented now like understandable by the user? So do we know that this certain name is a profile? Do we know that this certain name is actually a link? Like things like that. So that's what information design sort of talks about. Yes, let's move on to structure. That's my favorite part. So we have interaction design, which communicates like interactivity and functionality and what users can do. So it also informs users about state changes, and we'll see an example of this in a second. And then prevents user error, mistakes, like the system asking the user to confirm potentially harmful action. So we see this on multiple accounts. And then also helping people accomplish their goals. So yeah, so interaction design is super important because you want to make sure that the user understands exactly how to use your interface, but making sure that it's, you know, in a way where they know exactly what's going on. So yes, and then information architecture design. So this, you organize, categorize, and prioritize the information based on user needs and business objectives. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory as well, but it makes it easy to understand and move through the information presented. Again, making it as easy as possible. And then flexible to accommodate growth and adapt to change, right? And of course, it's being appropriate for the audience. So we'll take a look at what that means. All right. I feel like Discord has pretty complex navigation design for someone who just lands on the platform with no prior knowledge on how to use it. I agree. This is pretty right. I think there's a lot. I think it's very, so people who are like not in the Discord space or like gaming or tech space, like the general consensus of everyone is like, wow, that is such a complicated app to use. And I agree. I think the way that it works right now is like really great. But I guess, yeah, I've been using Discord for like 5 years now. Like I can't, I guess I like forgot what it was like to like not know how to use it. So I think personally, like I think my insight on this is like not that great because yeah, no, I remember like thinking it was confusing at first, and then I just got it right, and as everyone else did. So, but yeah, I totally agree. This is definitely a super intimidating thing. How do we balance ecstatic versus practical? For example, Steve Jobs refused to put speakers on the front of their Mac because he didn't like how they looked, but it would have had better sound. Yeah, so I think the thing is like with Apple, they have definitely like their what is it? Their aesthetic is very important to them. And I think it was also what like it's the same thing with like the touch bar. Like they completely got rid of it on all their like Macs for like whatever design purpose, right? But we know that aesthetics for Apple, like that is like their big thing. And one of the things that you actually come to find is that people will think that if it looks nice, it works. And that's like what Apple, I think, is banking on, is that, okay, well, it looks really good. Like it's gotta work. And yeah, like it would have had a better sound, but people still bought them, right? So it's like, I think despite that, like, you know, like the understanding to having to be practical, I think is very I guess like yeah, it is an interesting balance. I think Apple is like a separate, like it's like a really big brand, and I think that thinking about like your like scope for like a project or something that's obviously not a brand like Apple, I think it's important to have some of both. Like I think a decision like that was only as risky as it was and was completed because I think they were like, it's like established already that their brand and this is what's important to them. So, but depending on like what services or things that you're making, I think it's important to have that practicality part in them because at the end of the day, you need your uh, you need whatever you're trying to do to work, and I think whichever way you take that, um, however you like it, like just as much as possible. Ellie, I'm loving this presentation so far. Good job, thank you. Is it possible to do some of these explanations using abstract examples? Like they do coding using pseudocode? Wait, yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, I don't understand. I think like, do you mean like actually showing? I think I was gonna like do some stuff still left in my presentation. If there's still like some examples missing, we can go ahead and do those. Or if you can like let me know, I guess like what you mean. I'm sorry. Gmail's like an in between, but because it does take a while to learn it. Yeah, and I think you could say that for like a lot of applications too. But the difference is like something like Slack. If you've used Slack and Discord before, you know they're quite similar, but Discord still has that intimidating like, oh, it's like so hard to use, and Slack is like slightly easier, right? So I think whatever like, definitely there's always like a learning curve with complicated or content heavy platforms like Discord. All right, yeah, we'll go ahead and this is an example of maybe some good interaction design. So here we have the one on the left is Notion and the one on the right is Tumblr. So what we're talking about is letting the user know that about a like like a danger or harmful action, such as like deleting your account, things like that, are always, I guess, in like red, like you see here. Clicking like delete entire workspace, like that's in red because it's clearly something that was made to stand out. There's also like a button there about like learning about what this means, right? So Notion is giving the user like in their interaction design is based off of like, okay, we need to make sure that the user knows that this is like not like you can't go back. And then same with Tumblr. So you see here they have a pretty long blurb about deleting your account. So you lose access to everything, all of your blogs or your posts. So they're very like clear about it, right? And then they have this thing where you have to put in your email and your password to delete everything. So the user is conscious of what they're doing and that this is what they mean to do. Yeah, so it looks like on, if this is red or orange, it looks orange, I guess, on stream or maybe on, it's supposed to, I think they're red, like their original colors are red, but yeah. So yeah, so that's sort of that, and this is what we can consider good interaction design. And doing stuff like this to like your web apps or sites that you're working on, mobile apps, is definitely like important, right? Like just keeping in mind that you need to let the user know that they're about to do something that they can't go back on. And there's other examples of that as well. And then information architecture. So what does this look like? So you see here, I'm gonna go ahead and take myself off here, but so this is an example of information architecture design that I worked on for a client recently. So we have a flowchart of the current website layout, and then we have the redesigned website layout. So you see here that it might be a little difficult to read maybe, but there's basically a legend, and each of them, one is like defined as like the page, a button, and then the end. So there's like these 4 pages, and then with these 4 pages, there's also like the different sections on that page and then the information. So this is what it was previously. And as you can see, the redesigned one looks a little bit different. And this is exactly what information architecture looks like. It's sort of a way where you're able to lay out how the information and the navigation of everything is presented. So designers have a clear understanding of, again, that point A to point B of how that's going to look like and how we can make it as effective as possible. So I think recently, I should have found this and put it here, but I think like Twitter, someone tweeted Twitter's like layout or Slack's. I think it was the Slack notification. It like looked something like this, but it was extremely complex. It was like wild. It was like that is how much thought goes into like sending out just one notification to a user on Slack. And yeah, a lot of this, again, this is all a part of like the user experience, like and like architecture of the entire like process of releasing information to the internet. So yeah, that's just an example of what that looks like. I'd love to also talk about it more, however you guys see fit. If there's any questions on this, please let me know. Yes, so then now, again, I just wanted to quickly cover some of the ones we didn't. So we went over, so strategy is to define the user needs and business objectives like we talked about. So going through a strategic research process, this is where you'd interview, this is where you like understand all the stakeholders that are a part of your project or product. And then reviewing competitor products or companies. So doing competitive analysis on other stuff is important as well. How is yours going to stand out more than the other ones? Or how is your design going to be different, right? So it's strategy. Scope is understanding exactly what it defines, like the functional and content requirements. So what are the features, content contained in the application or product that you're going to release, and then the requirements should fulfill like that strategic goal, right, and should be aligned with that. So that's exactly what scope means. You're just like putting together exactly what is required and what isn't. So usually this is also working with a product manager to getting this together, because they're also a really big part of the design process as well. Usually, sometimes. So yeah, that's a bit on there. We've talked about structure, and then we've talked about surface, skeleton. Yeah. So if there's any questions on any of the 5 elements of UX design, feel free to also let me know. All right, so yeah, let's talk about the users. So I've thrown this like word around of like users interacting, users. So who are the users? So the users refers broadly to anyone who may use or maintain the product, and this could include people such as system administrators, IT experts, computer technicians, but it's also you and me. So it's the users of the application, everyone who is going to be possibly who could use your app. So those are the users, right? All right, let's go through some UI UX methodologies. So these offer structure, consistency to focus on problems and drive success within the design process. So these help people get on the same page, whether it's within a project, organization, or industry, right? So I'm going to talk about some of the ones that I personally have used throughout, like just working with like other clients. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. So the first one here I have is the double diamond model. So you'll see, I think the text might be a little hard to read. All you just have to know is that it's basically like a looping process, right? Of the like of strategy and execution. So strategy is deciding what to fix. So there's a problem, what are the user needs, problems and challenges, and then define which problem are we trying to solve, and then as you like keep going, you keep going through that, right? So defining the problem, but also deciding what to fix. And then execution is deciding how you want to do that, right? So you develop what is the range of ways we could solve this problem, so coming up with solutions, and then deliver. So which solution will we develop? So that is also like an iterative process of coming up with something, like researching again, and then tweaking that final, like deciding how we're going to do everything. So, and again, it's saying like the middle one here, it's like that is also such a looping process, right? So just going back to once again, like learning from users, the market, through user interviews, surveys, um, and then sorting and analyze information for just like defining what to fix, right? So yeah, so that's sort of exactly like everything that you would need to make sure that the design meets the user needs. So that's the double diamond method. And next we have something what is called design thinking. So design thinking takes into account starting with inspiration, ideation, and implementation. So it puts people at the center of every process and encourages designers to set aside assumptions. So for example, like instead of designing like a new children's toothbrush, a design thinking approach would be would define how to clean teeth as the problem and explore a wide range of solutions. So that's sort of like, okay, we have an initial problem, like let's forget about how other people have solved the problem, like what is going into this with new creative ways of helping someone come up with this. But of course, like research is also a part of this as well. So empathize, right? Understanding exactly like, you know, who you are targeting, defining the problem, ideation is just coming up with ideas, the prototype of your solution, and then testing it. So making sure that it works. Yes, and then the thing that I also love the most really is user-centered design. So this is the one I mainly use, and I think it's a pretty big methodology that most designers or, you know, a lot of companies also use user-centered design. So this puts users at the center of product development, and it involves them in the design from the beginning. So design is seen here as iterative process that incorporates user feedback both during the development process and after launch. So user-centered design responds to both contexts of use, such as the user's environment, technology, emotional state. So yeah, so as we see here, like it just always keeps going. So before you design, you're testing, you're understanding, you're researching while you're developing. Okay, we have pushed out this new feature, like let's test it. So similar thing is you'll see like Instagram sometimes some friends or accounts will have certain features that your other account doesn't. And that's sort of also what we call A/B testing. So that is like which type of like, let's say like they implemented like a new like feature of like statuses on Instagram DMs, right? So is that getting interaction? Like, you know, Instagram is constantly checking their analytics to see, okay, like how are users responding to this? So that's sort of an example of that, right? Of just like iterative design. And then, okay, it didn't work, then they get rid of it. So things like that. I'm sure we can think of examples where some sites had certain things and then people hated them so much that they got rid of it. And I think an example I'm thinking of is like something with Snapchat that just got terrible terrible backlash. But yeah, that's exactly what we mean with user-centered design. So empathizing, understanding, right? Like evaluating, exactly understanding, okay, how did like the user respond to this and how we can like go from there. So that's just that one there. Okay, and then now let's go ahead and talk about defining good UX. So I put good here in quotes because at the end of the day, it's pretty, it can be definitely objective in the way that one design is objectively better than the other, but good user experience is different for everyone, right? So some people like certain apps, other people don't like those apps. Some people prefer if you ever heard of Notability and GoodNotes, so those are two very popular note-taking iPad apps. And it's usually, there was some debate of like, okay, do you want to choose GoodNotes or do you want to choose Notability? So it's very like, you know, each one has their own user experience that is unique to that app. However, you will think one is better than the other, or, you know, whatever reason for any other app example that you'd like. But yeah, so that's why I think good is like subjective but objective at the same time, if that makes sense. So what does that mean though? How can we put like what we're thinking into words? So it has to be usable, findable, and useful, of course, desirable. So you gotta make sure that people like it, they want it. Accessible is a huge one. Definitely never set this one aside ever. Credible, so making sure that this is something that users know that is trustworthy. And yeah, and then of course valuable at the very middle is something that a user is even grateful for at times. Just like feeling that like sense of like this is something important. I think could define good UX. So yeah, just an example of what this means to. All right, and then we're gonna get a little bit more, just like slightly technical, wireframing. You might have also heard this term before if you're interested in design or in the design space. So wireframe is a low fidelity. So what we call low fidelity is bare bones skeleton type of thing. So what you see there, that picture on the right of like a mobile app, that is a low fidelity sketch. Something that you would see, that you have probably seen before, of like design, people making app designs, that is what we call high fidelity. So that is a hi-fi design, where it has a lot of the content already filled out. Low fidelity wireframing is just a sketch. And this is a representation of a digital interface that defines the content layout and page elements. So you can explore ideas easier and rapidly with wireframing, right? So high-level communication with the team. So usually Figma is that's why people really like it. It's very collaborative in the sense that you're able to, you know, add comments on certain places of a design, things like that. And you're able to work really well with the team to sort of bring ideas to the table. Wireframe elements are placeholders for high fidelity elements, as I've mentioned, and should be represented as simply as possible. So sort of like this right here. Right, there's really no like brand identity, nothing. It's just content layout. All right, so let's talk a little bit about user research. This is one of the like biggest things. Personally, I am incredibly passionate about user research, and this goes into the UX part of everything. And I think this would be great as a part of like the intro for you all on UI UX, because I don't think it's emphasized enough, especially in the developer space. Designers, I think, have some sort of just like, oh, they just make it look nice, or they just make it like, there's so much that goes into it, and I think it's incredibly valuable to understand that. So yeah, what is user research though, and how do we do it? Like, what does that even mean? And yeah, I'll go over some best practices. But basically, user research answers how are we serving user needs, right? So how can we figure that out? How can we figure out if we like are serving them in a good way or a bad way? And then how can we create evidence supported design decisions? Because at the end of the day, that is definitely one of the important things is yes, like it has been tested that users, right, prefer certain sites over others, things like that, right? And it's because we know these things because of all like the user research and testing that has gone into that sort of thing. So why is it important too? It helps save development and process costs because if a team works like a month to do a feature from a design that people hate, then that just is a month wasted because that feature is going to get eliminated and then that development was for nothing, right? So that hinders a lot of like the cost of everything. Excuse me. And then understand what solutions work best for users. So we might have an assumption that a certain feature or design is going to work and then it doesn't. And then now we go back to the drawing board and then think of another solution, right? So that's why it's super important. It allows decision making to happen faster. Pretty self-explanatory there. And then help uncover opportunities to provide value to your users. So a user might mention something that you have never thought of before, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this would be a feature to add. This would be something that I think could change the app, things like that. And you wouldn't have known that if someone didn't tell you. So some of the reasons why user research is important. So user research has its own methodologies of its own. So these are just 3 out of like maybe 30 or just like more, just like these are just like some user research like methods that can be separated into quantitative and qualitative. But basically we'll go first with usability testing. So this is just asking a user to perform tasks and you can ask follow-up questions to understand the thought process. So we call this also like a follow along. So usually you might do an interview and then you'll be like, okay, here's the app, like use it to do certain task. And then that interviewee would think out loud and the processes they're going through that. So this can either be like in person, remote, it can either be like some type of software or like a site. And then, you're able to choose between different design alternatives. So understanding which design is going to work better than others. Then we also have interviewing, as I've briefly touched on. So these are where you're asking those open-ended questions. You observe natural behavior. You're interacting with a product in its own environment, right? So, a user is just going to be like using it or using your product, and then you get to ask them about it and exactly what happened. They teach you about different types of users too. So we'll also touch a little bit on like personas and stuff, but basically, I guess like there are going to be different types of users for like your app, right? So someone is gonna be, let's say like, let's say you have like a recipe app where you just have recipes on this app. One potential user could be like a parent, like cooking, like who has children, and how are we gonna keep that type of person in mind? There's also going to be a college student who's looking for recipes. So those two are very different users, and they use ultimately your app for the same thing, but their experience is going to be different, and it's important to consider both experiences. So that's why user personas are incredibly important. And interviewing can help you reach like a ton of people on exactly what sort of category that they fit into, if that makes sense. And then We have desirability studies. So these are also, this is one of my favorite ones. You show participants different types of designs, and then you give them a word bucket. So then they can choose words they associate with that design for each one. So, what might this look like? Let's say you have two different design approaches you want to make, and then you have words that you think you want your site to like define, right? So let's say like powerful, bold, um, strategic. Maybe those are like some ideas of like words, and then the user would then, okay, I associate the word strong or bold with this design, and then you get to see exactly like what that means, and your own biases are like not into place as a designer. So that's just a little bit on those. And then now we'll end off with UI UX laws. So how to make your designs like look nice, and just things to keep in mind when you're designing or thinking about how you're going to change up your site portfolio. But UI UX laws. So first we have Weber's law. So our body adapts better to small changes. So what does this mean? This is when, so you'll notice companies come out with changes little by little. So I was mentioning Instagram. I was mentioning Twitter. Despite everything going on with Twitter right now, they've usually pretty much been very consistent with doing like small changes here and there that can either be like on the UI, that can also be like moving like the stats, things like that. Just like moving like certain buttons. It always comes off, it's like very tiny changes that you notice. And why do they do this instead of just remaking the entire app? It's again based off of Weber's law, right? Our body adapts better to small changes. If it slowly starts changing, a user probably won't be able to tell that greatly. And then in a year when the app is completely redesigned, it's like, how did that happen? It just like went like that, and you just kind of accept it because that's how it just started changing little by little. So that's an example of Weber's law at use. We have Fitts law. The longer the distance and the smaller the target size, the longer it takes. So this can be in relation to buttons. I think this can be in relation to like selections. Have you ever, let's say you're trying to like fill out a form, and then you have to put in your university, and it's a lot of, there's like a ton of universities, right? So there's a lot of them on the list, on the drop down. So you have to go through each one and like try to skim and see which one you can find it. And that takes forever. Or if you're not able to type, then that also like just sucks because you have to like find it manually. So that's an example of like Fitts law, right? The longer, it's a long list, and then the smaller the target size, usually the font is pretty small, like it's going to take forever. And that's why like we try to do like filter by search, right? So a lot of the times is if you're trying to fill out your university, then you should be able to type it and then have it pop up. So yeah, just an example of that. Jacob's law is users prefer sites that work the same as other apps/sites they already know. So what is a common one? I talked about this last time too, and this is the most common one I can think of, is the Instagram likes. So the double tap has been pretty like ever since Instagram came out with that. I'm not sure if Instagram was the first one to do that. I just remember like it being a big thing that you were able to double tap on Instagram and like the picture. I don't even know if I was there for that, but that is how we've associated likes. So with like on TikTok, like you double tap to like, right? And that's exactly, and if it didn't, like it'd be weird. So it'd be like really not something that you'd have to get used to, I guess, that you can't just double tap. Also, I think Instagram Reels you can double tap. Let's see. I'm trying to think of like other sites that work with like double tap. But I know like maybe even like dating dating apps can probably have those. I'm not sure, but yeah, so that's just an example of the double tap. We associate that with a like. And users prefer that, of course. And it's not just that, but like I guess the way things are laid out is also similar to this. And then we also have Hicks' law. It's the time to make a decision increases with the number and complexity of choices. So yes, so this is, for example, let's say you have a form, and all right, there are like 16 different food items that a user can choose from. So it's gonna like take a longer time to make a decision of 16 food choices than if you, let's say, you grouped them, or let's say you had like, all right, would you prefer Italian, Mexican, Chinese, or Indian food, right? And then okay, a user can then, that's 4. So okay, like I want Chinese, and then once you have like Chinese food, then there are like a list of other meals that the user can order. So that's an example of changing that, right? So instead of listing out 16 items, it's going to take forever. You can like do it by group, right? And that's a design change right there. Like understanding users better is important to, the results that you want. But yeah, so it's just a little bit about UI UX laws. And yeah, I think that is actually all I have for you all today. Thank you so much for hearing me out for the past hour. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Please feel free to let me know if there's like any questions or comments. I'd be happy to like answer anything. I can stay on stream for a bit longer. But yeah, those are some of the things that I guess I wanted to like touch on. And of course, you're always able to message me on Discord about everything. But yes, tomorrow we will be doing, I think around the same time, making a web app in Figma and designing it. And I'll be talking about some of these things that I covered here. So if you're interested in learning a little bit of Figma and design work, definitely check that out tomorrow too. And I think there's a bunch of other, or there's a couple more like design related stuff. But yeah, I want to thank you all so much for watching and staying till the end of the stream for. For you, what are the best languages to use for UX design? I think UX design, like, do you mean like programming languages? I think this, like, just definitely, I think like keeping, like having a really good knowledge of like HTML, CSS. If you're like a front end developer, and you're designing, I think that would be the way to go. But sorry, I guess I'm not sure what you mean, but if you mean like coding related, yeah, just like HTML and CSS for styling. But yeah, thanks for your question. I have my whole, her name's Ellie Toast. I want you all to see her. Woo! She's so cute. I love her. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to show her off. How do you document your usability studies / interviews? Is there any best practice for it? Let's see. Yeah, so usually I do this the way that I have done it with like clients in the past, and the group I'm a part of here at university is we use FigJam to have everything on there. We brainstorm, like interviews and everything, and we put everything into, I guess we've done like Google Forms for like surveys. And what we did with that is we gathered like all the results and then we put them into different groups using sticky notes. So I can even like show that as well and what I mean. but this is how like I documented that. I'm gonna go ahead and share this other side of my screen so you can see that. Okay, yeah, so that's the end of the slides, but let me go ahead and show you what I mean here. So this is a Fig Jamboard, and what I've done here is these are interview invitations, the survey insights, and then these are the names of some of the people that we interviewed and some of like their main things with sticky notes. And then just like some other things about displaying like what is the important questions for our survey and then putting them on here. So this is pretty much like what we did. And I think this is pretty much also, I think, like used in industry. It's just like laying stuff out in like different buckets in Figma. So that's how I've been able to document my things. Hi, I'm doing good, thank you. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, of course. Yeah, here, stop my screen. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I think it is time, but I really appreciate once again all of you being here. If there's anything I can do to help, again, feel free to message me. And I love talking to you all. I am super excited. Let's see, next events I am doing, if you all are doing a first party hackathon, not this weekend, but next weekend. I will be coaching it, so happy to see y'all there. Learned so many things today about UI UX. Thank you, Ellie. Yeah, of course. I'm glad you did. There's so much more to learn, so please feel free to, you know, I guess continue learning with it. It's really great. It'll help with your development process, even if design isn't like necessarily something that you want to just like design in Figma or anything. Knowing about these things is gonna help you like code better. But yes, thank you. Mike Tyson or stuffed crust? I think this is like a, I have no idea what either of those are. I'm sorry. But yes, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live now. But thank you all. And yeah, I will be putting the slides on my website. So yeah, for sure. Thank you all. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye. Have a great rest of your day.